Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about calculating federal income taxes. So we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into it. After today's lesson, you should be able to calculate taxes, describe what tax brackets are, and what it means to move to a higher tax bracket. Let's get started. So our first example is going to take on for Cecilia and Sandra, or Cecil and Sandra, sorry. They're married and they earn $823,000 in taxable income. Notice the table on the right here has a bunch of different numbers than what we've been working with before, and that's because this is the married filing jointly column, and these are roughly double the single column. So when two people get married and file jointly, their tax burden is basically just shared between the two of them. All right, let's get started. So the question is, how many tax brackets will their money be in? Well, they make $823,000, so they're going to fill up all of these and have some in this top bracket as well. So that would make it a total of 7 brackets that their money is going to be in. So I'm going to draw the 7 down right there. So now we need to go and figure out how much taxes are owed in each bracket. So their first $23,000 is going to go here. So I'm going to put down here, hey, this is $23,000, and that's going to be a 10% tax. Remember, we have moved the percent over 2 places, so this becomes times 0.10, and that's going to equal $2,300 in taxes for that first $23,000. All right, so that's good. Now we got to go from $23,000 to $94,000. To find out how big this bracket is, we're going to take the 94 and subtract it by 23. When we do that, we get $71,000. So their next $71,000 goes in this bracket. So it's full, so $71,000. And we're going to multiply that by our 12%. Again, moving decimal place 2 places, we get 0.12. And when we do the math on that, we get 71,000 times 0.12, and we get $8,520. 8,520. Sorry, let me rewrite that. That's really ugly. $8,520. All right, so that's bracket 2. Bracket 3 is this one right here. To figure out how big bracket 3 is, we're going to have to take 200,000 minus 94,000, and that gives us $106,000. So they're going to put $106,000 of their money into that bracket, which, you know, I'm happy they're making that much money for themselves. And then let's see, at 22%, that's going to be times 0.22, and that's going to be, let's do that real quick, 106,123 times 0.22 equals 23,320. So this bracket is $23,320. Erase that. All right, fourth bracket. So on this one, this bracket stretches from 200,000 to 380,000. That's a jump of $180,000. So again, they still have filled up this bracket. Remember, we're now just getting to the $490,000 point. So we have $180,000. And we're going to multiply that by a 24%, so 0.24. And we end up with 180,000 times 0.24. They're going to pay $43,000 in taxes for this bracket. Oops, I didn't see how much. Sorry about that. Times 0.24, 43,200 for that bracket. So far their tax bill is pretty huge, which, you know, they make a lot of money. So let's go. The next one, 380 to 490. That's $110,000 in this next bracket, which is interesting that it's a smaller bracket than the previous fourth bracket. And this was taxed at 32%, so times 0.32. And then the math on this becomes 110,000 times 0.32. And that ends up being 35,200. So we go $35,200 in this bracket. We're getting close now. Sixth bracket, this one's also full. This bracket goes from 490 to 730. So I do 730 minus 490. That's $240,000. So that's our biggest bracket yet. So $240,000 goes in here. And you multiply that by 0.35. And that's going to give us a cost of 240,000 times 0.35, $84,000 in taxes. So $84,000 in taxes. That's a big chunk. And then the last tax bracket. So far we've placed $730,000 of their money. All of this represents all that $730,000. We have 823 more to go. That's going to be, looks like $93,000 left of money. So I just did the 823,000, the total income, minus the 730 we've already placed, and that gave me $93,000. So 93,000 times 37%, 0.37, and that's going to equal a final bill, 93,000 times 0.37, $34,410. So $34,410. All right, to see their total tax bill, what we're going to do is add up all of these things. So 2,300 plus 8,520 plus 23,320 plus 43,200 plus, and this number under the calculator was 35,200 plus 84,000 plus 34,410. Which is totally wrong. Let me pause and get the right answer here real quick. That ends up with a total tax bill of $230,000, $950. So $230,000, $950. So $230,950. I put the dollars in the middle weirdly. So if we want to know what their overall tax percentage is, we could do something pretty straightforward. We could take this money they paid in taxes totally and divide that by the total income, taxable income they had. When we do that, we get $230,950, and we do that divided by $823,000. But it's 0.28, so they pay a 28% tax on their income, and that's what's called their effective tax rate. And you can see that somewhere here in the middle-ish, and that's because they're paying in all of these brackets. So these lower percents drag that down from 37 down to 28% overall is what they're paying. All right, so far so good. We've got that figured out. And now we're going to do one more calculation. So this one, this is Chandra, and she makes $50,000 in taxable income, which means her money is taxed at a 10% and 12% rate. So Chandra is in, turn my pen back on. Chandra is in these first two tax brackets only. And she's worried because her next raise is going to get a raise of $500, and she knows that's going to take her from the 10 and 12% tax brackets into the 22% tax bracket, which is almost doubling the amount of tax she pays. And that's what she's worried about, that if she gets this raise, she's going to actually lose money because she's going to be in that much bigger 22% tax bracket. So let's take a look at how this actually works. So before the raise, let's talk about before the raise is $50,000. How much taxable or how much taxes does she pay? In the first bucket, she's at $10,000 times 10%, 0.10, and that's going to equal $1,000 of taxes she pays on her first $10,000. And just like the previous couple, she's paying that same 10% on that first part of her money as well. And then the rest of her income, the other $40,000, is in this bracket. So $10,000 was there, and now we're going to tax $40,000 at the higher rate of 12%, so 0.12, and this is going to give us a total tax of $4,800 for that bracket. Okay. And when we add these together, her total tax bill for the year is $5,800. And that's just the $1,000 plus the $4,800, and that equals her total tax bill of $5,800. Now, after the raise, she's going to get an additional $500. Well, she's filled the first and second tax bracket. What Chandra is thinking is that she's going to have all of her money be taxed at 22%. And if that was the case, her new tax bill would be $50,000 times 0.22 would be $11,000 tax bill. And that would be double of what she got. So if she got this $500 raise, she would owe another $5,000 in taxes, which means the raise would actually cost her money. And you'll hear this through your life of people saying, oh, they know someone or heard somewhere where someone got a raise at work, but because it brought them to a higher tax bracket, they ended up losing money. Let's see if that's possible. So remember, getting more money doesn't change these first two brackets at all. They're still full and they're still there being taxed the same. All that's left is that additional $500, and that's going to go into this higher tax bracket. So she's going to pay higher taxes only on this $500, and that's times 0.22, and that's going to give us a total of $1,100, or sorry, 100. Let's just do it real quick. I think it's 110. Let's just find out. 500 times 0.22, 110. Yep, should have stuck with my intuition on that. $110 of taxes. So on that $500 raise, she's going to pay an additional $110 of taxes on that. So really, she's going to be bringing home an extra $390 on that $500 raise. So it won't. So when you move into a new tax bracket, all your money doesn't follow with you. Just the money that's not been taxed yet in that bracket is taxed at the higher rate. That way you don't have the situation where you get a raise and lose money because you pay way more in taxes. That would be extraordinarily unfair, super unpopular. It is not what happens. So after her raise, her tax bill is going to be $5,910. She still gets money on the raise. Don't worry about moving tax brackets into a new tax bracket. Only the money in that bracket goes there and gets taxed there. All right. Hopefully that's clear. I hear that all the time, so I wanted to clear that up in your brain that that's just not possible to do that. So turn off the pen. Let's get this thing going. Last slide here, my friends. So two things I want you to know. Only income in the higher tax bracket is taxed at that higher rate. That means you cannot get a raise and lose money to taxes. You cannot, that's just not possible. The other thing I want you to know is that everyone pays the same amount of tax on the same income. So if you're single, everyone, whether you're Bill Gates making $1 billion a year, or you're, anyone else in the world making less money than that, your first $10,000 is taxed at 10%. The system we try to make the system as fair as possible. So everybody's taxed in the same way on the same money, so that, it can be more fair that way. Now, if you make more money than me, the money above my money can be taxed differently than what because I don't make that money. But if I did, I'd be taxed the same way. So there isn't one set of rules for one people and another set of rules for another. We all pay 10% on that first 10,000, 12% on the next 40,000, and on and on. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful, and we'll see you soon.